Story time about how I snuck out of the house and got caught by my crazy psycho mother. Warning you guys, but here we go. At the time, I was 19 and I just got done with my first year at a university. And while I was at school, I met this cute boy, which we're going to call Kendrick. And that whole year, we were talking. So summertime rolls around and I go back to live with my parents. And when it came to my parents, they were very strict about me talking to boys, especially my mom. And I know I was 19, but my mom did not allow me to go out if she didn't know where I was at. So this one day, Kendrick is like, oh, we should go out one night. And I went and told my mom that I was going to the mall with my friends. But as the time got later, it was like too late. And my mom started blowing up my phone. And usually when she does that, I'm in big trouble. So I just decided not to pick up because I know I'm going to get in trouble anyway. So I might as well stay out and have fun with whatever time I had. But that was the biggest mistake. Y'all come back for part 2 because it gets bad, really bad. Part 2 of how I got caught sneaking out of the house by my crazy psycho mother. So like I said earlier, I was out and she was blowing my phone up and I was not answering. Because I knew I was going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well just have fun. Well, as the night was getting later, I had to go home. And when my boyfriend Kendrick dropped me off, there was a whole bunch of cars outside of my house and police cars. When I walked into my house, I saw all of my family, uncle, aunts, cousins, police. It was a whole bunch of people in there. I had my uncles and aunts walking up to me asking what happened to me. Said they called the police because they thought I got kidnapped. At one point, I was going to lie and said I got kidnapped because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I just told everybody I was out with a friend. But when my mom saw me, it was over. It was over. I should have just went ahead and buried my grave then and there. Because I got my ass whooped in front of everybody and the cops. Story time on why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So growing up, my parents split and my sister and I would stay with my mom. During the summer, we'd go see our father. My dad was a mortician and he owned a funeral home. When he would do his work, he'd go to his basement and tell us to never go inside of it. At night, he liked his basement. I always assumed that he didn't want us going down there in fear of us seeing dead bodies. One night, me and my sister was up. We couldn't sleep, so we started playing Truth or Dare. And my little sister dared me to go inside the basement. I didn't want to be a punk, so I did the dare. And I found the key to go to the basement. Before I get down there, I, of course, expected to see bodies. But when I was walking around, I didn't see any. But what was crazy was that it sounded like there were little girls crying. If you want to know what I saw, come back for part 2. This is part 2 of why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So, like I said, I went downstairs to the basement and I didn't see any bodies. Instead, I heard whimpering and crying. So, I went back upstairs and told my sister that there was nothing down there. She said that she wanted to see, so she came to the basement with me. When we were both walking around, she said that she heard the whimpering too. My sister had saw a door and it sounded like the noise was coming from behind the door. When we opened it, we saw girls chained up. This is why you should never have 2 best friends, but instead, 1 friend. Be careful of being the third wheel. When I was in high school, I had 2 best friends, Naomi and Cassandra. One Saturday night, we went to a party. When we went back home, we didn't have rides back home. Also, by the way, when we were in the party, Cassandra met this guy. When we stood outside the party looking for a way to get home, the guy Cassandra had talked to earlier had pulled up in his car. And he asked her if she needed a ride. She, of course, asked if he could take me and Naomi home. He said yes, but he only had room for 1 more person, and he told her to choose. And she chose Naomi. And in that moment, I really realized who were really the best friends. I asked him to please not leave me there alone, so Cassandra asked the guy if he could come back for me and pick me up. And being the good guy that he was, he said yes. But when they left, he never came back for me. The 3 best friend trio. This story time is how I caught my uncle feeling on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So when I was 11, my cousin was throwing a party, then afterwards a sleepover. By the way, we're calling her Adrian, and she was turning 13. So the day of the party, me and my other sister were dropped off by my dad, and we were dropped off very early, maybe 5 hours before the party, and that's because he had to go to work and my uncle didn't mind taking us all together to the party. Plus, we got to help them set up for the party. When we arrived, we went to Adrian's room and she got her hair done. It looked so good. When we were talking to her, she just seemed so sad. And you know, when you're younger, you can tell when things are off. She seemed bratty, and she would say that she hated her mom and her dad. To me, I'm like, why? She has the perfect life. Fast forward, she throws a party, and when it's all over, we go back to her house for the slumber party. We ate snacks, played games, watched movies till we fell asleep. I'm a light sleeper. And when everyone was asleep, my uncle came in the living room, tapped on Adrian's shoulder, and told her she gotta go to sleep in her bed tonight. Let me know if I should. This is part 2 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So early before, I told you guys everyone went to sleep. We were all asleep in the living room floor in front of the TV, and my uncle tapped on Adrian, telling her that she needed to sleep in her bed tonight. I'm a light sleeper, and I was woke the whole time. Adrian was still asleep, so my uncle picked her up and took her to her room. I was confused on why she had to go to sleep in her room because everyone was asleep downstairs. So 15 minutes passed. I'm still waiting there bored. I don't know what came to me, but I was just curious to see if Adrian was up. I mean, she might have been because I would have woke up if I was switched to a new room. I don't know. I just went up. When I got upstairs, I opened the door. Adrian was asleep, but she was completely naked, and my uncle was sitting right next to her, touching on her. I'm out of time. Let me know if I should make a part 3. This is part 3 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. Like I said, I couldn't sleep, so I went upstairs to see if Adrian was up. When I opened up the door, Adrian was asleep, but she was naked, and my uncle was touching on her. I got scared and was about to run downstairs, but he ran after me, covered up my mouth, and sat me back down in the room. I started crying, and he said if I didn't shut up, he was going to beat me, so I shut right up. In the midst of it all, when he was standing up, I didn't notice before, but he had on no pants. I started sniffling, and the noise I was making had woke Adrian up. She looked at me, then looked at herself and saw that she had on no clothes. She jumped back and immediately wrapped herself up in a blanket. I started crying again, and my uncle said, "If you don't shut up, girl, I'm going to smack you." Then Adrian yelled at him and said, "Don't hurt her." And immediately, he popped her and said, "What I tell you about talking back?" And from there, Adrian just sat there frozen, touching her face, and I shut right up. This is part 4 how I caught my uncle touching my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So, after my uncle popped Adrian, she got real quiet. Then out of nowhere, she started burst out crying. My uncle was trying to tell her to be quiet, but she just got louder. I don't know what it was, but as soon as I saw her crying, I started crying too. Immediately, Adrian's mom busted in the room asking what's going on. My uncle was trying to convince her that everything was okay. She grabbed Adrian and saw that she was naked. Adrian's mom started to get upset. At this point, everyone was waking up. She took both me and Adrian out of the room and yelled at my uncle, telling him to throw his clothes on and go. We went to the bathroom and she asked us questions. I told her what I saw, and Adrian told her everything, even things I didn't even heard about. It seemed like her mom had speculations that this was all going on, and her mom started crying. Towards the end, I really don't know what they did afterwards. I told my dad, and from there, me and my sister was never allowed over my cousin's house, and I haven't seen her in 8 years. This story time is how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me with my best friend. Okay, so my birthday is when I introduced my 2 favorite people in the world, my boyfriend and my old childhood best friend. We went out to the club along with some other friends. We all had a great time, and they were also able to talk, which I was glad about because they'd be able to be comfortable around each other so it wouldn't be awkward. After the night was over, my boyfriend asked if they could exchange contacts, and I was filled with liquid courage and thought it was cool because then they would be close. I don't know. But fast forward a couple months, I went on a business trip for a week to Florida, but the trip cut short because I got finished doing everything and was able to come home 2 days early. So I wanted to surprise my boyfriend, and I bought some food from his favorite restaurants. When I got home, I called for my boyfriend, but no response. Then I went upstairs and heard moaning in my bedroom. So I busted in and saw my boyfriend laying in bed with my best friend. If y'all want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. This is part 2 of how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me with my best friend. So after I came back home 2 days early from my business trip, I caught my boyfriend in bed with my best friend. My heart has never burned so hard. I blacked out and I went crazy. I jumped on the bed and started beating him. And he was stronger than me and was able to pin me down. He was naked, but he was over me, so I was able to squeeze his you-know-what. And he crawled in a corner, panicking. My best friend seemed like she was trying to put on clothes and rush out, but she wasn't getting away easy, so I snatched the clothes she was trying to put on, threw it out the window. I snatched her up by the hair, dragged her out of the house, and she stood outside naked. and I didn't care because I never felt so betrayed. Then I went back to the room, and it seemed like my boyfriend was trying to get up and put on clothes and grab his keys, but I snatched the keys out of his hands and flushed them down the toilet. At that point, I got fed up, so I grabbed my taser and told him to get out, and I left both of them outside naked. My boyfriend was trying to get back in the house, so I called the police about trespassers trying to get inside my house and trying to attack me. If you want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. This is part 3 of how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me with my best friend. So after I caught them in bed together, I kicked them out of the house completely naked. When my boyfriend was trying to get back in, I called the police about trespassers trying to get inside my house and attacking me. And it was my house. I paid the bills. His name wasn't on the deed, and they were both arrested. My boyfriend even tried to run and hide, but they tackled him and pinned him down. And it felt good to see, but I was still hurt. And the crazy thing is, 3 years later, they are now together. My ex-best friend even got pregnant. She tried to invite me to the baby shower, but I threw the invitation away. Instead, I sent them a cute bag of dirty diapers. When I was younger, me and my friend Makai became friends with this new girl who lived in our neighborhood, and we're calling her Valentina. Valentina lived with her brothers, mom, and her dad, who wasn't around often. He came around maybe once a week. One day, we were all playing outside, playing how regular kids should. Valentina's dad pulls up, sits in the car, and watching us as we're playing. When he finally gets out, he waves at Valentina, then calls over my friend Makaya and asks to speak with her. We're all confused, but then he told her that it was very important that she come and that everyone else has to stay here. Makaya and Valentina's dad had walked into the alleyway and turned the corner. And me and Valentina listened and stayed where we're at, and we stopped playing. When Makaya finally comes back, we continue to play. When it was time to go back home, me and Makaya walked home together. I asked her, "Why did Valentina's dad pull you aside?" She proceeded to tell me, "He told me not to say, but he asked to see my boobs." There's more to the story. Like for part 2. So after we go back home and Makaya tells me Valentina's dad asked to see her boobs, I was so in shock. But she tells me she didn't show him because she felt weird doing that. By the way, I forgot to mention, at the time I was 10 and Makaya was 12. She already started developing, if you know what I mean. After she tells me everything that happened, we agreed upon telling her mom. When we got to her house, we told her mom, and immediately she calls Makaya's dad. Guys, when I tell her dad came to the house, she was ready to kill this man. Her dad was like the hood type, and he brought all his boys. They went to Valentina's house asking to see her dad. Valentina's mom answers, and she tells Makaya's dad that he's not there, which was a lie. I'm guessing she could feel what was about to happen. He then went and told her what her dad had did, and her mom is so in disbelief, and she chooses not to believe him, saying he'd never do that. Makaya's dad was so frustrated and just walked away. As soon as she closes the door, we all hear Valentina's dad say, "What's going on?" And when I tell you this man ran up, he ran back and kicked the door open. After we hear Valentina's dad, Makaya's dad kicks the door open, and he ran inside and just attacked Valentina's dad. It was honestly the most scariest thing I've seen because you could see in his eyes that he was just ready to kill that man. And maybe after a minute, they finally pulled Makaya's dad off of Valentina's dad. And guys, her dad's face was just covered in blood. Almost felt bad for him, but then I was like, God's plan. Anyways, after the whole thing happened, Valentina's mom called the cops, and Makaya's dad was arrested for assault. But he wasn't in jail for long. Still to this day, he talks about how it was well worth it. And Valentina's father, he was just looked at as a sexual predator. And I never really thought about it until now, but I truly wonder how Valentina felt. Because after the whole situation, me and Makaya never saw Valentina ever again. Not even on the streets. It was like she disappeared. Around this time in October, a couple years ago when I was in 7th grade, I went to a friend's house for a slumber party, and we're calling her Charlotte. It was Charlotte's birthday party, and she had a big sleepover with 10 other girls. I knew 6 of them because they were friends and they lived in our neighborhood. The other 4 were her cousins and a friend from school. She had ice cream and cake, we danced, prank called, the regular preteen sleepover. Later that night, we watched a scary movie, and after it was over, one of Charlotte's friends from school said, "We should play the Ouija board." By the way, we're calling her Sam. I wasn't really into it because my mom always told me to stay away from those things. Charlotte wanted to play too, and she said, "How are we going to play without the board?" Sam said, "We can make one. All we need is cardboard." Somehow they found cardboard in the kitchen, and Sam made the board and a triangle piece with a hole in it. I was like, that's not going to work. When Sam and Charlotte played, the piece moved across the board. When the piece moved, everyone screamed, and Charlotte's dad came in the room asking what the problem was. Charlotte immediately scooted the board under the bed and said, "I thought I saw a bug, but it was just a hairball." And her dad seemed a little irritated, but he just walked out the room. When he left, Sam pulled the board back from under the bed, saying that the game needed to be finished, but Charlotte said she still wanted to ask questions. So everyone each got to ask a question, and the board answered it. They even asked questions of today, and at the time, our president was Obama, and it knew who the president was. When it was Sam's turn, she asked jokingly, since the board knew everything, she asked when we were going to die, and it said, "Tonight." And from there on, everyone stopped playing. Charlotte got scared and didn't even want to touch the board anymore. Sam constantly said that we all have to say goodbye, but everyone wanted to stay away, and usually when you don't say goodbye, the spirits that you talk through the board continue to roam around your home. Today's story time is from a follower, and she needs advice. I didn't want to tell this one because it seemed kind of personal, but it'll probably help other girls who are going through the same issues. Hopefully, TikTok doesn't take down this video. By the way, we're calling her Brandy, and she's 15. So growing up, Brandy lived with her mom and her dad, and occasionally she would be with her grandparents whenever her parents were arguing for a long period of time. She practically grew up with her grandparents. She even had her own room. But whenever she come back home, she would notice her mom wearing sweaters and chokers. It was this one summer where all she wore was jackets. She said her mom claimed to be cold. Anyways, earlier this year for Mother's Day, Brandy wanted to surprise her mom, so she bought gifts from the store, came into the house quietly, and busted into her room to surprise her. When she came in, her mom was half naked, and she had a lot of bruises on her neck, arms, just about everywhere but her face. There's more to the story. Part 2 will be up soon. So when Brandy busted into her room, she noticed her mom had a lot of bruises on her body. Her mom quickly covers up and tells her to hold on. Brandy asked her if she was okay and did someone do something. Her mom said no, so she ran downstairs and she asked her dad why did her mom have so many bruises. Her dad said she fell down the stairs and that she's okay. She was a bit confused, so she went back upstairs to her mom's room and asked her why she had so many bruises. Her mom began to say, "Oh, they're not bruises. It was just an allergic reaction to something I ate, and now I have rashes on my body." Brandy then gives her mom the gifts and was still confused because her dad told a whole different story. But she left the situation alone, and after that, the past months, every time she would get back home from her grandparents, she would notice the bruises were getting worse, and now she's assuming that her dad is abusing her mom, and she doesn't know what to do or say because she's never seen her dad as a violent person. But please comment down below some advice.